So hi folks, Alex Forrest vlogging to you on a Sunday morning, and this is going to be a little bit of an extended vlog because I think it's a particularly important topic and I don't want to cover it in just a bite-sized chunk. So bear with me here. I'm going to go through a variety of different, what I can believe to be kind of solutions to the issue of rejection. Because you will need to tailor this particular advice, which is obviously just a general video, to your own particular circumstances, and that's something to bear in mind as you are listening to my philosophical meanderings during the course of the next 20 odd minutes. Okay, the very first thing I want to say is that at the end of the vlog I'm going to make a little bit of an announcement about a fresh idea, a fresh project that I would actually like some feedback on. I also want to obviously plug my books. I am just completing part 12 of 52 First Dates. I actually completed this project over a year ago, but I'm still writing the book. So I've been taking a lot of the time in order to really get into the kind of the learning nuggets that I've acquired as a result of going on, really quite a number of dates. And I do recommend part 12 because it's got quite a cool couple of climaxes in relation to a couple of Russian girls that I was dating last year, so you can pick that up on Amazon. I'm producing these mini books for 99p. Part 12 will be released over the next couple of weeks. I'm then going to produce volume 2, which will also include an epilogue. I've already published volume 1 on Kindle. I will then, once they're both available on Kindle, be producing paperback versions as well. And I have got a narrator, and I've got a buddy here in Warsaw who is up on these things to do an audio version of Mysterious Duck Girl. And it's been quite an amusing little story because, and I'm just going to digress before I get onto the main meat of today's vlog. But I just did want to tell you a little bit of a story about my experiences of trying to find a narrator for the audio book, Mysterious Duck Girl. Now this is a book of a couple of stories where there are very sexually charged interactions on the street, and then led on to interesting adventures and developments with both girls. And I found a narrator, and then he liked what he'd read, which is the first few pages, which you have to do if you're auditioning for a narrator for an audio book on Amazon. And then he read the full book once I'd contracted with him to produce the book. And he messaged me, he cancelled the contract, he messaged me, I'm sorry, this is too explicit, bordering on predatory. Now, I don't know whether that's an endorsement of the book that will persuade you to read it or not, but I was a bit taken aback. I didn't think it was all that predatory. Maybe I've gone down the rabbit hole of pickup and seduction and lost focus. I then found another guy on ACX, which is the platform where you can find a narrator for your book, and he has this really rich voice, which I didn't want to use at first because it makes you smile when you hear the quality of his voice. I mean, it's good for a seduction book. Anyway, having run out of options, I've decided to give him the job. But before I did, I said, look, you should be aware that I've been told by another narrator that this book is explicit, bordering on predatory. Here are the sections that you should read because I don't want you to get the wrong idea about what this book is about. And I was a little bit nervous about what he might say, and anyway he messaged back this message, which I think is quite delightful. And it made me reflect on this whole idea that what we do is predatory. And I want to just put up another text message that I got from a successful day gamer who's been day gaming in Eastern Europe and in Poland, as well as other parts of Europe. And he'd had a great interaction in the street with a girl, and this is probably the longest response to a simple opening text after interaction that I've ever seen. And the guys out there who are worried about being arrested for approaching girls in the streets, just have a look. This is the real truth of the situation. Girls want to be approached. I'm actually going a little bit feminist about this topic because I think in a way it's the men, and it's the men in my books who've accused me of being explicit and predatory. Interestingly, I've had an editor for my book, woman, an American. I've had a Slovakian girl edit my videos, fine with the content. I've got a assistant editor at the moment, a young girl, fine with the content. And yet, it's the men. I had the very first editor I had for Too Late Mate, American guy, was like, oh, can't handle this. And it's the same with this narrator. And it's like the men, it's like the patriarchal system, which has meant that women should be made to feel ashamed of their biological, sexual, impulses, their natural need and desire for a masculine man in their lives. They're made to feel ashamed to enjoy themselves sexually, to fulfill and explore themselves sexually by a society which, perhaps not in the last 50 years, but over the hundreds of years, has put them in the box, has made them, heavily religious societies are allowed to stone women for adultery. Men are allowed to, often in these heavily religious societies, men are allowed to sow their wild oats when they're young, go through a rite of passage. No woman is, they've got to be pure as the driven snow. And it just makes me think that really the feminists are missing the point here. It's not about equality of opportunity of in the workplace and forcing through equality by actually trying to fix a wrong by another wrong, forcing people to have as many men in the boardroom as men, and many women in the boardroom as men, and that kind of a thing, particularly when the feminine nature is not actually particularly inclined to that type of profession. That's not what they should be focusing on. They should be focusing on allowing women to express themselves sexually. It would make life a lot easier for us, wouldn't it? And I think a lot of the problem is that women feel incredibly constrained, and so it bubbles out in other ways, doesn't it? I mean, romantic chick flick, for example, paranormal romance is massive. It pops out in all sorts of different ways. Women become secretive. They are not allowed to express their natures as women. I'm not suggesting that women, go run riot, but I do feel that in that respect they are victims of patriarchal society, which has told them that they should feel shame for being sexual feminine creatures. Yeah. So I've digressed. So I'm just going to run through a variety of kind of like solutions to this issue of rejection. First of all, I've had more rejection than anybody as a result of doing this project. I remember the first time I was rejected in the streets was with a young girl, and I ran up to her in Piccadilly Circus, and before I'd even opened my mouth, she shot me down and said, "Oh my God, you're old enough to be my grandfather." I was left reeling, like, man down. The platoon is a man down. And I was at the time I was gaming with a couple of buddies, and for probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks, used to go out at the weekends together. I was like, right, I'm not taking any approaches. I can't face it. I can't hack it. It's going to dent my ego. But I will come out. And I did come out with them over those 2 to 3 weeks. And I remember I just sort of walked around with them. And I said, no, I'm not approaching any girls. I'm not even going to pay a compliment, but I am going to come out with you guys. And they laughed, but they understood, and I traipsed along. And it took me kind of like a few weeks to get my mojo back. But I did have a little bit of a strategy, and I think one of the critical things is obviously to be sticking with it, but to be finding buddies, okay, friends, who have a knowledge and understanding in this area, like they're proper buddies, not buddies who take, but buddies who give, and buddies who also, are trying to change their lives in this area. So that kind of little support network was incredibly important to help me get through that period of rejection. Now, the second thing is, books and reading, and to a point, watching YouTube videos, but I think books are particularly important. A friend of mine recently recommended a book by John Kavanagh, who's, I believe is a boxer, and he has a thing which is a turn of phrase, which is win or learn, win or learn. And I think, there is no losing, there is no failure. There's either you get it right and you win, or you've learned something really important. And you've heard this philosophy about how to deal with rejection, and that failures are stepping stones. We're in good company here, because Winston Churchill said the very definition of success is moving from one failure to the next without losing your enthusiasm. So why I think books are important in this area is you just take time out, you read at your own pace, you really absorb some valuable knowledge in this area. Obviously this goes for any area of life, and that helps to unlock the emotional pain, because you build up, if you do get a few knockbacks, you can kind of feel this physical emotional pain, can't you, from rejection, and it can happen at any stage of the dating journey. I had that rejection with that young girl in Piccadilly Circus. More recently, I've had a few rejections with girls in the bedroom stage, so I've kind of advanced to having sticking points in that area, and converting good quality girls, 30 girls in their 30s, my preferred age, who are proper eights, let's call them, and I've had the pain of rejection at that particular stage as well. Again, an excellent cure for that is to be reading some quality books, and books that are specific to the issue that you've got. So that is another way of, and particularly memoirs, stories. I'm laughing because obviously I've written one, because I actually think that Too Late Mate, although I don't know, because I'm too close to it, and I wrote it, but I wrote it in that way as a memoir because I thought if I really wanted to read someone about this, and I think the book, the John Kavanagh boxing book, is memoir-ish. You want to know about the guy who's writing the book. You just don't want to read a book that says, here are the 10 steps that you must take in order to find the woman of your dreams. If you do these 10 things, your life will be transformed in this area. I think reading memoir and biography is about people who have had challenges in a particular area of life. It doesn't have to be about dating. You can be reading a book about boxing and apply it to the dating arena. That's real encouragement. That's real food for the real soup for the soul. Good strong soup for the soul. Okay, the next area I'm just going to touch on is meditation. Now, you hear a lot of touchy-feely nonsense about inner game and getting yourself sorted before you can go out and approach girls and date girls. Well, no, your priority has got to be taking action as a dude, getting out there, opening up conversations with attractive girls, learning skills that you can do that in as many different situations during the daytime as you possibly can, and and learning dating skills and making sure you've got lots of dates. It's like you've got to be on the field of play. And actually, if you get into alternative things like meditation, and then you can very easily go down a completely different hole, end up with a completely different set of problems, as you become a navel gazer. Let's say you've got a life coach and a psychotherapist as well. You become someone who is like the philosopher who was walking along a path, staring up at the stars, and he fell into a pothole and broke his leg. That's an extract from Chaucer, a famous early medieval writer and poet. That's the problem with navel gazing. So you've got to be smart about this and make sure that if you are getting into alternative stuff like that, you are first and foremost taking action. So it just becomes sort of like, supplementary to you taking action. By the same token, if you don't dip into a bit of good knowledge, if you don't attempt to learn, read books, and sure, watch YouTube videos, definitely, then the danger is you become a bit of a mechanical, rigid robot when it comes to street approaches and to dating generally, and then you bury your sort of emotional pain at the failure that you're getting, and you don't reflect properly and address the problems and arrive at solutions, because that's what reading can really help unlock and help you to see the problems and then subsequently arrive at solutions. I meditate twice a day for 30 minutes. I have been doing that for 25 years. There's not a week that goes by that I don't at least meditate 7 times a week. And I might be busy in the evenings, but usually I do meditate twice a day. Now, it is quite a miraculous tool, because what I've discovered is that it helps you to reset. What happens is you get ideas that then have negative charges that get built around them, that give them this extra kind of force about yourself, and about where you are, about the successes that you're achieving in life. I've just spoke in the previous vlog about Christmas and how it can be quite a challenging time because of the ideas about yourself and the way family and relatives kind of hit against your vision of who you want to be, and you discover that you are falling short. So there's a whole host of areas in your life in which you will be struggling with wrong thinking about yourself. That's maybe well be why you are into this stuff, because you've seen that there's some wrong thinking going on, but you need to find a way through. Now, meditation is a wonderful way to reset, because what it does is it creates a sense of expansion. It's almost kind of like an out-of-body experience, except it is very inner body, because you become very acutely aware of the present moment and of your body. But what it does is it just dissolves the negative thinking, simply because it makes you see that it's ignorance, that it's wrong thinking, and that it isn't you. It is quite spiritual and woo-woo, but it's powerful, because you suddenly realize that, hang on, I am not that person that I think I am. I am something beyond. And it helps you to see yourself as kind of like an actor in a play who is not completely identified to who I am. My positives and my negatives and my warts and my good points, all of that. You see, hang on, I'm just playing a part in life. And that is the power of meditation, to help you to basically to be released from these inner demons. Now, it's not a fix-all. Go to Thailand and spend 3 weeks on a meditation retreat, quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of big immersions like that. It's better to build it into your day-to-day. But you're not going to get kind of cured, and that's where the cynicism about spiritual, let's call it, spiritual endeavours arises, because people think that it's going to be the solution to their lives if they just meditate twice a day. But what it does is, and this is a lovely Indian analogy from an Indian mystic, and it says that it's a bit like the mongoose. Apparently, the mongoose likes to fight with cobras in the Indian jungle. And what the mongoose does after it's had a fight with a cobra, because a mongoose can survive a cobra bite, but it's still hurt. And it actually goes and finds a particular plant in the jungle that it rubs itself up against that cures the wound. Really interesting, because that's what meditation does. It helps you return refreshed, it helps you to reset and go back into battle, because life is a bit of a battle, isn't it? And so that's the power of meditation, but you still need to take action. You still do need to go into battle and make sure you're applying, that you're not just repeating the same mistakes. You've got to go back into the battle thinking, okay, I made that mistake, win or learn, I'm now going to try this. So that is the power of meditation. I've talked about buddies, and I think actually, talking out your problems is really critical. I remember a dude who had got a sticking point on the street. He was getting bucket loads of numbers, and then he was not actually being able to get them out on a date. And it seemed as if the interactions were strong, and he was getting these numbers, and it was some ridiculous ratio, like, he was getting half of every girl he approached. He was 50% success rate in terms of getting the number, and the dates was like 5% or 10%. We were having dinner, and we had coffee afterwards, and basically through the process of conversation and talking about it. And I mean, in these situations, you can see a guy's got a problem. You have got to let him talk and encourage him to find, to think about it and to help him to find solutions. And don't just be having a pint and saying something off the top of your head. You've got to give time to people. You've got to give time to people. Anyway, as a result of this simple conversation, he had the solution within himself. He'd actually bought a recording device, and he'd been thinking about recording himself whilst he was in the street. Perhaps he was a bit reluctant because he thought it was a bit creepy or something. And it became obvious to us that he needed to record himself. And then we arranged a time when we sat down together with a pizza and listened to 10 recordings he'd done of 10 street approaches. We made the sacrifice of time, because if someone is genuine about wanting help, you do give time to them. And we were very happy to give time to listening to these 10 interactions. And bingo, he had the courage to address the issue himself and to take positive steps to fix it. And this isn't just this is a genuine story. And bingo, he's actually now in a relationship with a girl. I met her. She's very attractive, a lot younger than he is. And it really does seem as it came about as a result of this process of good company and good conversation with dudes who, they may not know everything, but they have the willingness to learn. They aren't arrogant about themselves. They, they're fellow journeymen, and they know the importance of good conversation around this area in order to help you, work through problems and sticking points. So I actually think this is really important. I've offered to do Skype calls with guys on this YouTube channel. I thought I might end up with a bunch of crazies, but they were just all regular Joes just like me. And I think there's a bit of a kind of a gap in the market in that sense, because we all get stuck at various points along the road, and we need to share our stories and try and work through them. You don't need to sign up to a very expensive psychotherapeutic course or go on some Iron John retreat to the Scottish Highlands in order to learn to become become more masculine. This is just something you can do with the people who are around you, but you obviously do need to ask for help, and you do need to be prepared to listen. So let's call it good male company. It's very important to have that good male company around you whilst you are on this journey. You're on it together. Try and generate some camaraderie amongst your friends, your buddies in this area of your life if you want to grow and develop. I think it is true that you, how shall I put it, that you, a lot is obviously said about getting yourself sorted, your own life sorted before you can, become good at women and dating. So I don't think this vlog on rejection will be complete without, and here I'm going to just draw a little bit of a diagram and pose you a question. Let's take the example of a line. Here's a line, yeah, a short line. Let's say that represents the limiting beliefs that you have about yourself, or the troubles, tribulations and sticking points that you've got in the area of women and dating. How do you address that? Do you rub it out? Do you bottle it up, suppress it? What do you do? The answer is not to be focusing on that little line. The answer is to do this. When you do this and you draw a bigger line, then the smaller line diminishes, becomes much more insignificant, becomes much less of an issue in your life. So what am I talking about? I told you this was a philosophical meandering. Well, I'm talking about increasing getting out of your comfort zone and broadening your vision and your range of activities in life. So, to take an obvious example, if you're suffering right now from one-itis for a particular girl, if something isn't quite working, then go out and meet and date other girls. That process will then diminish and probably ultimately dissolve and eclipse that little issue that you thought was so serious and significant and was ruining your life. Yeah, and that can happen quite quickly. And so now it could also take the form of, as I say, sort of getting some mastery in other areas of your life. Not if you're a workaholic. If you're a workaholic, you probably do need to go out and meet girls and date. But I mean, it's difficult to give yourself heart and soul to this stuff if you are struggling with your finances, for example. Now, in that situation, you need to get your finances sorted. And it may be that the rejection that you're experiencing, whether it's in the street or whether it's on dates, actually at the real heart of it is this inner game issue of you not being completely settled in yourself. In the classic area for a man, this can be a real lodestone, a real millstone around your neck, an anchor while you're trying to sail the boat. To get your finances sorted. So those are two examples, finances or one-itis, or, as I heard from a buddy recently, where you're kind of in a pseudo relationship with a girl that you know is not going to work and is not going anywhere, but you just hang on to it. You don't move on, you don't have the courage to just simply let go and move on. And therefore that impacts on your daytime approaching your dating. You may not even be aware that that's happening, but that could be holding you back. And that's why I say it's important to do things like read books and talk to buddies and to reflect on what your sticking points are, rather than just keep on doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. So sorting out other areas of your life, it may be physical, might be a way of drawing that long line and diminishing what you perceive to be issues, whether it's some sticking point you've got or whether it's actually a girl that you might be suffering one-itis with. Okay, look, I think I better wrap up there. There's kind of like a menu of what I would consider to be a different sort of set of tools, if you like, in the daytime approach and dating toolbox to help you address the problems of rejection, whether it's getting burned out in the street, or whether or not it might be in a different phase, whether it's dating, or in my particular case, the challenge is the bedroom, actually getting physically intimate with a girl, but not actually going all the way with her sexually, and then not cementing that into a long-term relationship. Now, on that note, steps that I'm taking, don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And this is the bit where I wanted to, if you're still listening, congratulations. I would love some feedback on this. Best if you email me, please, on alex@streetstories.co.uk. But I am thinking of making more of my website, streetstories.co.uk, creating a special section on that website where I'm writing a blog of my day-to-day and weekly adventures. I'm also going to house the podcast I've been doing with Mr. Ian and others on that section of the website, but I'm going to put it behind a subscription wall. In other words, you're going to need to give me your email address so I know who you are, because I find that the problem with YouTube is you get people who are just going onto the videos aimlessly and just dumping their stuff and being angry, I don't like the YouTube comment system, and I think the problem is that people aren't taking they are not. They're throwing pot shots from behind the parapet, aren't they? They are not actually putting themselves out there and saying who they are. I think if someone has actually supplied me their email address, then they are putting themselves out there to a point. And so, anyway, that's what I'm thinking of doing. There'll be, as I say, a weekly blog, written blog, a diary about my adventures. It will be focused on what are quite sort of intimate personal areas, which is another problem that I have, is that I no longer want to be putting up. I feel constrained on the longer podcasts because I don't feel I can speak freely because it's on YouTube. I don't like the idea of housing that stuff on YouTube any longer, particularly in the current climate in the West. So that is what I'm thinking of doing. I will also have on that section, if you want coaching or you want me to recommend someone to coach with, or you want a Skype call with me, I should also be putting details of how to do that on that section as well. So it's both a way to make the website and what I'm doing a little bit more professional, not inviting you to pay for it, but just inviting you to be added to a subscriber list and actually give me your email address in order to get access to that section of the website. These videos will, as usual, be posted up for free on YouTube, but the deeper, more personal stuff I want to put behind a subscription wall, I guess. And the key is to open the door into that magical world of knowledge is your email address. Buy my books, you bastards, and particularly if you've had a Skype call with me and you haven't bought my books and left a review yet, well, shame on you. Get your ass together and read those books and leave a review. Look forward to vlogging to you in the near future. I'm going to now be moving into the section on texting before I get onto the dating process itself. Bye for now, dudes.